Spencer. I'm with the Waikiki Aquarium, and today I'm going to be sharing with you Hawaiians and the sea and how the early Hawaiians used the resources around them in order to survive. So they were very good at discovering resources and using it as a way for them to survive in Hawaii. They also brought resources with them and used those also. And they're very ingenuitive in producing different ways to farm and also capture fish. And they made tools and weapons that would help them to survive on an island right in the middle of the ocean. So I'd like to thank you for being here with us today. And what I'd like to share with you first is fishing implements and how it was produced and how they used it as a resource. Now, when they went out fishing, they made sure that when they caught only what they needed and nothing more. Okay? So they were very good at conserving what they had, because if they didn't conserve their resource, it would be gone forever. So I'm here to share that with you. So we'll start with the fishing implements. This one is a basket trap that they made, and it was called a hinai hinalea. Hinai means basket. Hinalea is a type of fish that they caught. So they made different types of hinai for different types of fish. This one is a small one that they caught hinalea with. The hinalea is in English is a wrasse fish, and it's not very big. That's why the basket is this small, but they also made larger ones to capture larger fish. But this one, they made out of, they weaved this vine called ie vine. They made a hole on the top that coned down. They attached it to a stone, heavy stone on the bottom, as a weight. Now they would take this by where there's a shallow reef and place it into the water to capture the hinalea. But before they did that, what they would do is they would have to condition the fish to come up to the top to learn that it's time to eat. And the way they did that, they would every morning or whenever they decided, but it would have to be consistent. Every morning, say they would take bait, and normally it's crushed crab and sweet potato. They would just toss it into the water where the fish would be abundant. When they did that, they would continuously do that until the fish were conditioned so that when the person came in to feed them, they would automatically see them and come up to the top ready to eat. Once they got to that point, they would take this basket trap, they would put the bait inside, and basically the women would do this. They would place it down into the reef on a rock, and fish would smell that type of bait, and they would swim into the hole on the top, but would not be able to get out. So once it was filled or they had enough fish in there, they would take the trap apart and take the fish, and if they had enough, they would be on their way. But before they left, they would take the bait and they would feed the fish again so that the fish would continuously come back. Okay, because they had to take care of their resources. And this is called a hinai hinalea, all right? The next fishing implement we'll look at, or two of them, are called Macau. They're fishing hooks, but these have different sizes that they would make it out of. They would make it out of wood, they would make it out of bone, pig bone, human bone, dog bone, and they would also make it out of turtle shell and different other ways they would make it. Now, this one right here is a two-piece hook, okay, compared to the one-piece hook. So they would basically carve these, all right? Especially the wood ones. They would carve it depending on how big the fish they're catching. Now, this two-piece is actually very strong. You would think that it's two pieces, not that strong, but it is very strong. And they would actually catch little larger fish with these. The reason why it's strong is because of the cord that they tied it with. The cord was basically made out of a bark of a tree called Holo, which is very rare in Hawaii today. And they would weave this very, very thin, and they would tie down the hook to the wood, okay? The tip to the wood. Next one I have is another hook. Let's go to the shark hook. This is a shark hook. It's called a kiholo. The kiholo wasn't carved like the other ones we talked about. It was shaped out of a branch from a tree, and it's a very hard, dense wood. Okay, they use koa, a velvel, which is very hard woods, and it has some type of oil in it. And so it actually preserved it in the water. And it was very, very strong because they're catching sharks. Now, the reason why they shaped it instead of carving it is because the grains on these run the length of the branch. And what they would do is take a cord when the tree is immature, the branch immature, they would tie the tip of the branch and they would pull it down to a shape of a hook. Then they would leave it and let it mature. When it got to a certain size, they would cut it and it kept its shape. Then they would place a tip from a bone tip. And they had a way of tying it down that it would be very, very strong, okay? And then when they put the line on it, this part out here is just aesthetics. It's just to make it look good. But it's underneath the way they tied the cord that made it very strong, okay? So this again would be made out of the cord that I mentioned before, holo na, all right? So this is kiholo, a shark hook. The next one, here's one right here. This one is called Paia Aku. The Paia Aku is made from pearl shell. This is the back right here. And they cut it, shaped it. If you look, there's a curve. And that was for a purpose. And the bottom has pig bristles on it to stabilize it in the water. Again, they attached the cord to it, and they put a hook, tied a hook to it. The hook was made out of bone again, and they would use this as a trolling lure. Pa is a general name in Polynesia that's used for this type of hook. Okay, he means to tow. So also means troll. So it's a trolling lure. And the last part, aku, is a type of fish that they catch with. It's basically bluefin tuna. They would take this out to the ocean. There would be like 100 canoes or so. And they would go out searching for a school of aku. And they would know by looking at the birds flying around on top, circling that school. Once they seen that, they would take their canoes out, paddle out with the fishermen on the back of the canoe, and they would go into the center of that school and ride along with the movement of that school. So on the back of the canoe, the fishermen had 20-foot poles that they would throw out at the back and move it back and forth. The oyster shell was polished very shiny, so it sparkled and attracted the fish. The fish would automatically clamp on and take that bait, and fishermen would hold the pole with one arm. They would pull it up, and the fish on the line would come down and hit them on their chest. They would hold it, unhook it, throw the fish in a canoe, and throw the lure back out over and over again until the canoes were filled enough. But they always took enough and never more. Okay? At that point, they would take it in and they would be able to feed the village that they lived in. So that is called a Paia Aku. The next fishing implement would be this one. It's actually an octopus lure. This one is called a leho he'e. Okay, leho means the name of the shell that octopus like to eat. He'e is the octopus. Is octopus in Hawaiian. So leho he'e, or they call it lu he'e. They would take that shell, put it together with this stone, a stone weight that they shape either as a bean, or they would shape it like a bread loaf, depending on what island or where they came from. They would attach a cord to it. There would be a stem in the middle, and there would be a tip made out of bone. Okay, and at the bottom here, they would connect tea leaf. Okay, basically, and that would help attract the octopus. When they went out in their canoe to a deeper reef, they would drop this down to a hole where there would be an octopus there waiting. And as they dropped it down, they took kukui nut, cracked it, chewed it up, and they would spit it on the surface of the water. At that point, it would open it would be like a glass looking down, or goggles looking down into the ocean. And they could see for a few moments where they were dropping their octopus lure. When they dropped it down, they would shake it, attracts the he'e, and immediately the he'e climbed onto it. They would pull it up quickly to the top, and they had many different ways of killing the octopus so it wouldn't climb on them. But they would take a club to the side of the canoe and they would club it and bring it into the canoe. Then they would drop this down again for the second time. Okay, so this is called a leho he'e or lu he'e. Now we move on to, let's see, the weapons. Okay, there's several weapons that I have here today. The first one we're going to look at is called a leo mano. Okay, a leo mano is called lei of the shark. And this weapon is actually longer. This is just a display for us. But they made it longer. They put or tied tiger teeth to this weapon, this club. And the ones that would carry this would be the ali'i, or chiefs, into war. And this would be used as a slicing type of tool. So same as the Chinese, ancient Chinese or Japanese who have karate or kung fu, the early Hawaiians also had martial arts, and they practiced their martial arts with their weapons. Okay, so this is called a leo mano, and the wood that they use would basically be something like koa or a velvel, which is very, very hard wood. Okay, they also made holes in here, and I'll show you later how they made those holes to tie it down. The next one we're going to look at is this. This is a beak of a marlin called nuku a'u. Okay, nuku means beak, a'u means marlin or swordfish. And they use this not only as a weapon, which I'll show you later, they use it as a tool. So they would use this for filing. Okay, and they also used it when they went onto the foreigners' ships. When they would bring Hawaiians on the ship to work for them, they used this as a tool in producing rope loops to a rope that would tie down their sails. Okay, and they used this to weave it. Okay, that's when they used it as a tool. They also used it prior to the foreigners coming. They made weapons out of it. This is called a pahoa. It's a dagger stabbing dagger that they use in war. They made handles out of it, a handle, and they would basically use it for stabbing in war. The next weapon, this one, is made from a swordfish, a flat-billed swordfish, and it's called a Paia Aku, okay, war knife. And they basically made it look just like a sword, and this would also be used in stabbing during their battles. Okay, again, the Ali'i mostly use these along with the shark tooth club. The next one is, one thing I didn't share with you is the shark's jaw. The shark jaw, this is from a tiger shark, and I showed you earlier the weapon that they use the tiger shark teeth for. It's razor sharp. So not only did they use the teeth for wartime battle, but they also used it for shaving because it's basically razor sharp. Okay, and the tiger shark and great white sharks were called niuihi. These are man-eating sharks, okay, compared to other sharks. So these, they use the teeth, the skin, also they use it for sanding and different things. So they use their entire shark and made sure it was something that they used for either weapon or anything, but they tried to use everything and not throw anything away. Now we move over to tools. Another tool is this one called a niho oki. Oki means to cut, okay? And niho is the knife. And you would think, I guess they could use this for weapon, but they basically didn't. This is the tooth of a great white shark. And it was used as a utility knife. The early Hawaiians would make their own, basically, clothing, and they used kapa. It was called kapa. It was the bark of a tree that they would pound, but they needed to strip it. So they used this as a utility knife for stripping, okay, and also for other things. Okay, this is called a niho oki. This one is called a wheelie. It's a drill that they use. This one is called a wheelie, means to twist, okay? And it twists like this. Before the foreigners showed up, they made a bit made out of shell, but it wasn't very strong. They would have to change it all the time. But what would happen is ship wreckages from foreign ships would float towards shore, and they found use of the nails that were in there. They took the nails and used it as bits. They sharpened it and used it as bits. Okay, so the way this was used is they would wind it up and basically very easy to make a hole. And if it's sharp enough, it'll make a hole very quickly. Okay, and it had to be very sharp in order to make certain holes, because this weapon, the holes they made in it, was very hard wood. So it had to be able to penetrate that hard wood. Okay, and that's how they made the holes in their wood craftsmanship. Let's see. I think I've covered everything. I'd like to thank you for being here with us today. The early Hawaiians were conservationists. That means they used the materials they had around them, okay? And they continued to do that for their survival. So I'd like to thank you for being with us in Hawaiians and the Sea, and I hope to see you again. Mahalo and aloha.